Well, it's done. Finally, this thing is done. This thing's been a lot of work. You've seen the other videos, had the oil problem, water in the oil problem, which turned out to be the water pump was bad. I had to pull the front of the engine off, replace the water pump, reseal everything. The starter solenoid I had put in it, a new one, took one hit from the starter and toasted itself. So I found another solenoid I had here is a little bit different, but it works just fine. Plugins are all the same. It's off of a newer bike, but does the same purpose. And I ran into an issue with, and if you looked on the pictures before on my Facebook, starter problems. This starter was completely soaked in oil. The starter was really dragging when I first started working on this thing, and it didn't really seem to want to start the engine quickly as it should. So I put my battery charger on it, my old one, charged it forever, and it seemed like the battery wasn't taking charge. So I thought maybe my battery charger was bad, which I need to replace anyway. So I went and bought a new one. This one actually shows you the percentage of charge that's on it and how many volts you have in it. Well, it kept getting way up there to like, 75, 85%, and the voltage was good. You'd still hit the start of this thing would just drag and drag and drag and drag. Well, that's when I got the idea, well, let me take the starter off and check it out. Because I took the battery over to battery outfitters, had the guys check it, they said it's fine. So, put it back in the bike, pull the starter out. Flip the starter upside down, pull the bolts out of it. As soon as I pulled the bottom cap off, the starter oil just went everywhere. Well, what that was a result from is water being down in the bottom case of the engine, oil setting on top, the oil got past all the seals in the starter, because I'm pretty sure that's not an oil seal in it, because there's not oil level supposed to be that high. The oil level is supposed to be much lower than that, so it should never be actually in oil itself. What had happened is the oil level was too high. Those seals on that thing, I'm quite sure just a dust seal from the internal components of the starter getting into the engine. That all allowed all that oil to get in there, and just it started seeping, started locking up the starter. Well, the starter's a basic electrical motor. It has to work out positive and negative polarity. Well, if you have a liquid in there, it gets confused. Electricity does, and it'll go to path of least resistance, and that's what happens. It wasn't getting good contact. Plus, it was spinning an oil liquid when it should not have any liquid in there. It should be able to free spin by itself. So that affected a lot of things on this. And another thing, which was a huge plus with this, when I first started this bike, when I got all this stuff seated in here, and I wanted to make sure everything would get up to temperature in the oil and run a few oil passes to it, it'd start up okay, with the crappy starter in it, but you would rev the engine up and it would snap rev hard up. Wow, it would just come up on power, but coming back down, it would just take forever to come back down. Not like it should, but it was just going all the way. You could rev it fine up, and then coming back down, it just took forever. So I thought maybe that was going to be a carburation problem that we would work on later. I mean, it was acceptable to ride, and I was going to see if we could run a little cleaner through it and try to clean it out. If that didn't work, I was going to pull a carburetor. Well, I put the starter in. I started this thing one time because it started so quick it threw me off. Let it rev up a few times, shut off, start again. I did this several times, and then I started up and then started letting everything get up to temperature. I had the choke on full, letting it run, get up to temperature. And I shut the choke down and I opened the throttle all the way, wham, and just hit it real quick, like just give it a real quick wet rev, and their RPMs immediately drop back down like they're supposed to. Now, what I'm thinking is that starter's supposed to freewheel in one way. One way is a driveway, and the other way is almost like a sprocket on a bicycle. When you're pedaling down the road and you stop pedaling and it still coasts, it lets the back sprocket freewheel. I'm thinking what it was doing, it was trying to freewheel, but with all that liquid in there, it had to try to pull that liquid too. And I'm thinking that had something to do with it not wanting to rev down properly. But either way, I mean, that was luck. I couldn't have told you that if that was going to work on that part. I thought it was calibration. Apparently it's not. But yeah, it's ready to go. He's going to come pick it up tomorrow. I told him yesterday it was ready. Then I ran into this starter problem. I had to call him back and say, hold off, let me go get you a new starter. This one's completely toast. I can't even rebuild this thing because it is that bad. It is. That starter was very bad, and I'll show you some pictures here. I'll film it here in a second and show you what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, that's it. That's it. It just made a huge difference. It starts up better, revs up. I mean, comes back down off the power quicker. So I think that's it. So I'll start it. Let's kind of hear it, and I'll show you that. I'll show you that starter. I've never seen one do that, but things happen. I mean, it just happens. Sounds great. Sounds good. He is going to have exhaust work done on it, and I told him we could probably repair it, but you could probably find the exhaust for a little bit more than the time and the money it would take to repair this, because on these Goldwings, and I noticed this on the last one too, it's a 2-into-1 pipe, so you got your front and back exhaust. They come into here, and about where they come together, just about 9 inches back, there's a seam weld in there. Well, those always split. Seems like that's the weakest point on this exhaust system. So it splits there, and the hangers are real bad about splitting. This one's split here and split on the other side. But for now, he's okay with it, and that's fine. If he wants to run it like that, that's on him. But I did recommend that we do replace the exhaust, which isn't too bad. Other than there's a bolt that goes all the way through the center and connects them. And there's also a cross pipe that does kind of a scavenging effect, like the Mustangs and Camaros run. Instead of an X pipe, it's just got a Y pipe, and they're kind of just maybe a scavenging effect, maybe. But yeah, I mean, that'll be all. I mean, with that, the way it starts up and it revs up and it comes back down off the power, how quick it starts up now, how well the starter engages. I can look at the oil right here, see at the sight glass, and it's clear as it's supposed to be. I mean, this is the third oil change I put in it. Well, I had to blow all the water out, and there's not really a way to do it unless you want to pull the whole engine and disassemble the whole engine. So my best bet that I could do was put the oil in, let it get up to temperature, shut the engine off. I mean, like right up to running temperature, shut the engine off, immediately pull the oil plug, and just let everything run out and let it set for an hour, and let everything drain out that could possibly happen. Rock the bike up and stand it up, put the jack underneath it, that way it's level. You get all the oil out you can. Put a new filter in, do it again. But I mean, I know that's a little bit expensive. I mean, that's like what, $5 a quart, $5.50 a quart plus a $7 filter. But that's the only way I know to get it out of there. I didn't want to put any kind of detergents down in there, like Marlboro Mist Oil down the oil, because bikes are real susceptible to their clutches, because their clutch and transmission and engine are all bathed in the same oil. This has a wet clutch setup in it, so if you get any kind of too slippery of a substance on each clutch up, or they won't grip, or if there's a fiber substance that can eat those clutches up, then you guys crack them all motor open, because the clutches are shot. Well, I didn't want to take that chance. I knew if I just ran some oil through and kept consistently changing the oil over and over, it would blow it all out. And that's it. And like I said, I can see down the sight glass, and it's clear as it should be. And that's it. She's ready to go. I'm excited to see this thing get out of here. It's been in my shop for a while, but those things happen. You got to take this a step at a time, and it's not like this is my only job. I have a regular job, and I have other things I got to do. So I've been working on about as consistently as I can, and then I've got to wait on parts, because a Goldwing is common, but some of the parts you got to wait on to get, like the gasket kit and the starter solenoid I had to wait to get. But with the second one, luckily I looked around my shop and I had one, and it was way better than the $10 one I bought before that took one hit and was toast. So yeah. And Mike down on West 60, down between Cynic and Neosho, I bought the water pump off of him. I traded in some old parts I didn't use anymore that I pulled off the old CB. And I knocked like $105 off of that. It was $155, and I got it for 50 flat. So, and got rid of some parts on there we're going to use. He did cut me a good deal on the starter. It was like $239, and I got it for $175. So that's really good. And I called him at like 6:15 last night. I knew he was closed, but I thought maybe by chance he still might be there. And he knows me so well that he picked up the phone and said, "What do you need for the Goldwing now?" And I was like, "You're not going to believe it. I pulled the starter apart, and it's got oil just soaked through it." So yeah, I recommend those guys down at West 60. Mike is awesome. He's taking care of me, and I really appreciate it. So there she is. I'm happy with it. He's going to come pick her up tomorrow, and I recommended that maybe at 1,000 miles, or maybe at 1,000 miles or 500 miles, whatever one he wants to do. Go ahead and change the oil filter again. Let it drain out just like I do. I'm going to walk him through the process. It's pretty simple. You can't really get it wrong. And do it over, at that interval. And I think that oil change will eliminate anything. The thing is, with water being in there, water will, through convection, will burn off before the oil does. So it should, in theory, burn all that water off before it ever touches the oil, and then you should be clear on that part. And the smoking problem I had is gone, but what that was is the oil got up past your your oil rings in your piston, and they got up into the compression, got up into the combustion chamber, and was burning through with the fuel and smoking out the back end. Well, now that everything is correct and this engine's been up to temperature a few times and everything is kind of burned out, and I let this thing get up to temperature and let it stay there for quite a while because there was stuff that needed to burn off the radiator, stuff that needed to burn out the exhaust. Once all that quit and it stopped filling my shop full of smoke, she cleared it right out. So she's ready to go. Hope it makes him happy. It's made me happy. It's been a lot of work, but it's been more of fix one thing, another thing goes wrong. Fix another thing, and you can find another thing, and that's what happened. This is a 1981. I mean, it's a well-built bike, but you know, things go wrong. It's just a machine, you know. And I think the next thing would probably be, since the carburetors seem to be fine and they don't seem to be acting up like I thought they were, change timing belt. It's always a good thing. It's cheaper to do it now than at the time the belt slips or gives or gets slack in it, whatever the case may be. And the pistons come up, hit the valves, and shell the heads, and probably the pistons in the process maybe blow the whole engine, because that can happen. So that'll be later on down the road. But yeah, so far so good. And now I just got to find another project. Someone's got to give you something else to work on, because otherwise I won't have to spend time with mine. But I kind of want to do that anyway. I want to get started back on the CB and get that thing a little closer to being done, because I need to get it done. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. Oh yeah, I'm going to show you the starter. Oh. Now, as you see here, my lights aren't all that great, but here, this is the oil that came out of it. That came directly out of the starter, and there should be nothing in there, so that was part of it. And then, of course, all your normal parts, you know, the back. And as you can see here on the arbiter, that thing ate way down in there. It was just digging deep down into that. So, and that's not normal. I mean, of course, you wouldn't want to see it go that far. That's way past its point. So that's shot. And this is set up almost like a gear reduction starter with these planetary gears. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting how they did that. So it's almost like a gear reduction starter. So that's pretty awesome. You can see that gear on the end of that binds into here, and you multiply your force. So yeah. That's the old starter. No good now, but it's still, I keep these parts around because I take them apart or put them back together. That way, if I ever have to rebuild a starter for one of these and it's not this type of situation, this thing's rebuilt, I already know what I'm dealing with. So it's just, you know, I always do this. If a part's bad or something's broken and I have to replace it with the new one, once I get the new one in, everything works great. The old parts, I take apart. I always do it just because that's the way my mind works. I will lay in bed and think about how these things work, and then when I get the chance to take them apart, that's what I do. So that's that. Like I said, I appreciate you watching the video, and she's done. So now I got to get another project. Thank you.